Good day, everyone, and a warm welcome. It's great to see you again. Our business application webinar today is all about recruitment and the onboarding process and making an individual part of a team. And for that, we will continue where we've left off last week with the team application on Shadow Match. The same rules apply. Your microphone is currently on forced mute. I will enable the setting for you to unmute yourself towards the end of the presentation. You're welcome to jot down your questions. You can also post your questions in the chat, and I will post the questions to Peter before I then enable you to participate live to ask your questions and make your comments. Thank you. Last week was quite a vibrant session with a lot of questions. Maybe some of you have questions that came up during the course of the week. So we will address those questions towards the end. My name is Lizette de Villiers. I will be the host, and I will now hand to Peter de Villiers, the author and functional developer of the Shadow Match system and still head of research and development at Shadow Match. I don't think there's any other administrative arrangements. Thank you very much, Peter. Over to you.
Thank you, Lizette. Welcome, everybody. We will discuss the last phase of the recruitment process today. So the question that we need to ask is, when is a recruitment process done and complete? When can we walk away from the process and say this was a proper process and I have done what was necessary? I want to start by telling you a true story that I was very close to. A relative small company decided that they need to recruit a critical person for the business, and two highly qualified and specialized people in the world of behavior and psychology did an interview, and they came out of a few interviews with a few candidates with one, and they said this is the person that must be appointed. But whilst that was, when the person came for the interview, two other employees that were not in the interview just watched through the window and they said, this person is not going to work. They were not in the interview, they just watched this. So highly specialized people did the interview, they came back, they said, this is the individual that we must recruit. It was a complete disaster, complete disaster. After 3 months, it had to end. And then the same two people followed a different process and they recruited somebody that was very successful and contributed largely to the business. The point that I want to make is that recruitment is a critical function of a business. And if you make a mistake, it is one of the most expensive mistakes that you can make. I'm currently working on finalizing the return on employment calculator to refine it with new data and new information and new stats that we have in terms of the cost of recruitment and return on employment. It'll be live within the next 3-4 weeks from now. There are some small tweaks that we need to just have a look at whether we can stand up to the calculation. But to recruit is a costly process, and if you make a mistake, it can cause havoc in a business. So all people currently in our webinar that are in recruitment, just be mindful of the fact that it's a critical service that you are responsible for in the business. And with that in mind, knowing that we are doing something very critical, let's have a look at some of the critical components in this process. And we will look at the onboarding process, in other words, the final stage of the recruitment process. I'll explain it in detail. It's a function, the onboarding process, it's part of induction, but remember induction refers to a broader process than the onboarding process. So induction is the big process where you teach the individual about the business and the history of the business and the role of that division within the big picture of the business and who's who and where do you get coffee and all those things are part of benefits in the business and leave arrangements and. The onboarding process is a subsection of the induction process. It is a small piece, but a critical piece in the induction process. And that is part of the recruitment process. So sometimes we end the recruitment process very prematurely, and then it becomes what we have just heard, a disaster, despite the fact that the process was conducted by highly qualified individuals. Let's talk about a new team member. This is a team of 3 people. This individual needs to join that team. This individual, new team members, report that they, in almost always, we can say always just with a hesitation, but we can actually say they always experience distance, exclusion, being a stranger, and a forced entry. What does it mean to experience yourself as a forced entry? It says that these people don't really want me. I am the situation, or I am forced by the situation or the business to become part of this team or this work group or whatever we might call it. Sometimes they even experience a level of hostility during the first few months. And this hostility can obviously create what we don't want. We don't want this person to turn away from the team and to become aloof and outside the team and not be integrated in the working engine of the team. This can easily become exclusion, separation, and hostility. Now, what happens, dear delegates, is that when we have a person that experiences this sort of being a stranger, and it's a forced entry, and they don't really want me as part of the team, and I experience distance and exclusions from some people, team members, even a little bit of hostility. What then happens is the new recruit behave as an outsider to the team, and a lot of negative energy in the process of learning and development and being part of the inner working of the responsibilities of that team becomes troubled, and it becomes compromised. So we don't want that to happen, and bank on it, it can happen very easily. So new team members, there must be a deliberate process of integration and assimilation. This is not going to make this individual part of this team. Is not going to happen all by itself. If it happens by itself, it's luck. It's pure luck. It's the throw of the dice. If it happens by itself, it's either because, well, this individual has been very nice and very accommodating, or these individuals were very nice and very accommodating. And sometimes just one person can destroy the entire process. So what we must do is, there must be a deliberate process of integration and assimilation of the new recruit into the team. If we don't do it, what happens is we prolong the learning time and the productivity time of the individual to pick up, because as the learning to do the job, learning to be part of the working engine of the different team members, as that timeline is prolonged, the inclination of the individual to become productive and successful in the job is being compromised. So we don't want that, obviously, because it's not in the interest of the person, nor is it in the interest of the team, nor of the business. It's a costly exercise. So team onboarding is a facilitated process to ensure positive team integration, accelerated learning, and productivity. Now, these are heavy words. It's the process that facilitates an outcome to ensure positive team integration. So we want this person to be part of the team as quick as possible. And at a very early stage, there must be a connection between the team and the new team member. It must be a positive integration of the new individual. This facilitates a process of accelerated learning and productivity. So if we do this integration of the new employee properly with a team, they become productive much quicker than if we don't do it. They become active in the job and they learn the job and the engine and the inner working of the operation much quicker than if they now first have to learn the team and then learn about the individuals in the team and then decide which team members they like and which they don't like and which they will be who will they have a good relationship with. So that process takes 2 months. And then they start learning. And now we have paid the new individual 2 months of salary and they have actually just sorted out their position in the team. So we don't want that because it compromises their learning and their productivity within the business and in the team. So let's have a look at the recruitment process. And this is as simple as we can get it. We get a lot of applications in. So this could be tens or hundreds of applications. And then we do the screening based on hard facts. The initial screening is always based on hard facts. Do you have the qualifications? Are you registered with this body? Do you have the experience that we want? Can you program in this language? These are the hard factual line of the process so that we have an initial screening. From the screening, we have a selected group that got through the initial screening process. And obviously, this shadow match this is an automated process for shadow match based on their behavior and their skills grid. We can do this very quickly, even with large numbers. And then an in-depth analysis with interviews. And now we go into a bit more of an in-depth process and we say, okay, let's have a look at who do we have. And out of this short list of individuals, who do we choose to go to the final phase? We appoint this individual to the new team and that is the onboarding process. Now, obviously, Shadow Match does that. We've discussed that in the past, and there are lots of information. It provides information and a framework for this, for the interview and above that. And then now we're going to discuss this part. Now, during this onboarding process, there are a few points that stand out. Now, dear delegates, what happens is, I know how it works. I've been there. I've seen this process 100 times plus in my life. We get all the applicants, we do screening. Cool. We have a short list of 6 people. We interview. We decide this is the person to appoint. What do? We write a letter of appointment. And we say that you must be there on Monday, the 1st of June, and at 8 o'clock. And then at 8 o'clock, you meet the HR person. They go through all the questions about who to phone in a crisis and all the operational management, people management agreement with the company, etc. And then we take a walk to the department where this poor individual will start working. And we get to the department and we say to the manager, dear manager, this is your new member of your team. Good luck. I hope you have a long and happy stay with our company, and we walk away. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. If we see recruitment ends on the handover process and introduction to the manager, we have not done a good job. So what do we need to do? We need to facilitate a process of onboarding. That process, as I said, is part of the induction program. It is there to accelerate learning and productivity for the individual as part of the new team. So in this onboarding process, there are a few key aspects that we need to keep in mind, and I will show you on the system how it works. But let's go through them quickly. Knowing. The individual must know a lot of things about this new working environment. He or she must know who will I be related to? Who are they that will work with me? What are their names? What do they look like? What do they do? Will I be able to associate with them? Will I be able, what is my role? What is my, there's a lot of knowing that needs to take place to make that process optimal. We must manage the expectation of the manager, the team, and the individual. What can we expect from one another in terms of skills, in terms of our behavior and our preferences from a habit and a behavioral point of view? We need to know if there's a task to be allocated, who's going to take the task, and does the nature of the task has any bearing on who the task will be allocated to, and what tasks might be allocated to me as the newcomer. We need to know, the person must know who to ask and who not to ask. If somebody is high on task or on people, and there's a relationship issue with a client, ask the person that is high on people and altruism. Don't ask the person that is low on people and high on task. So who to ask and who not to ask as part of my team members. Then connection preferences in the team. How does the team prefer to connect with one another in terms of tasks that are being allocated in different team groups? What is the single goal of the team? If we don't know, and I have asked this question probably 100 times in my life to teams, and I ask them, so what is your single most important goal? They don't know. Like I've done it 2 weeks ago. They don't know. They said, well, we make sure that the admin is being done as good as possible. It's a vague idea. We must clarify that so that the new team member know that I'm here because as a team, this is what we do. The role of each team member, of the different team members, who does what, and who can I ask for what if that is necessary? Team synergy and team diversity. Where are we the same and where are we different? So I'm being made part of a new team, but I have certain things that might be very different to the team. But I have certain things that might be very similar to the team. How do I know that? When do I know that? And then specific development for each of the team members and for the new individual. So let's have a look. I think I'm still logged in. I hope so. Let's just have a look if I can determine whether I am still logged in. The system tends to log us out. So what happened in the example that I will share with you is that we had these 5 people who applied for a job in administration of this, in the admin division of this business. So 5 people applied and we sent shadow match invitations to them, and 2 of them, Fred Flamingo and Chip Chesterton, didn't do their shadow match worksheet, so they can't be part of the process. They didn't even make the screening process. And it happens. So 3 of the applicants who had the qualifications did shadow match. And we then decided, because it's only 3, let's interview all 3. And we had the interview pack and we interviewed all of them. But in the meantime, what we did is we clicked here and we said, but who is the best match to the benchmark? And we saw, we have an interesting situation. We have Wilma Williams and Fred Flintstone, and we have Natalie Wicks, and Natalie is a 3 out of 10 match, and the others were 4 and 4 out of 10. So we now, what do we do now? So we decided that we will have to interview these individuals because of the scarcity of the qualification, we couldn't get others to apply, and the other 2 didn't do shadow match. So we interviewed everybody, and we decided that Fred will be made part of this. We will appoint this individual as part of the business. We select Fred, we go and we say, we now make Fred an employee. Now Fred is being made an employee, and Fred now sits as part of the employee list. There is no other, the list is now included. So Fred is now an employee. And then we say, okay, cool. Now we want to see how will Fred function in the team. And we've created a team of administration, the admin team. And within the specific team that Fred will work, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 team members. And now we say, okay, let's have a look. Let's select all the team members. Oh no, I think I've been logged out. Oh no, this is bad. All right, I've got to log back in again. Lizette, will you just handle for me for a moment? Let me just log in again.
No problem, we'll wait for you, Peter. I think that password was way too long, Peter. It looked like you had 2 passwords captured there.
I might have. I think I've got it right now. Let's have a look. There we go. There we go. Okay, now Fred is part of now we're going to have a look at the admin team. Thanks, Lizette. And no. Lizette, we have a...
No, you are on the right track. Click there again. Go to with selected inactive team members. Just go down. Click on, scroll down. Include in the admin. No. Okay, don't close it that quickly. Okay, just stay there. There you are. Include in the admin team calculation.
Okay, thanks, Lizette. That is so cool. So now we have Fred Fred Flintstone is now being part of the team. So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to remove Fred first and say, okay, now Fred is now not in the team. There's Fred, not part of the team. This is what the team looks like. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. The team there's a bit of a distribution here, and that person is a bit soft on being quick and efficient. That person is very quick. This person is very accurate and attention with detail. This person is less accurate. Now we're going to say to the team, okay, what will happen if we now include Fred as part of this team? Fred is now part of the team. Now we can immediately see that Fred is much softer on the people side, a bit more firm habits on the task and material preferences. Here we have accurate and attention with detail, a bit stronger than the team there. Now we say, okay, show all team members. What I want to now see is that's Fred. That's the bold one. That is Fred. Who will be frustrated and who might be frustrated with Fred? This individual, that individual. Susan might be frustrated with Fred when it comes to collaborative things and people things, because Fred is very soft on this. Susan is very strong on this. Are there other differences? Maybe between Fred and this individual, there will be a bit of a being quick and efficient. Wilma is not as quick, but Fred is sort of in the middle ranks of the business. So what I do now as the facilitator, I do a full analysis for the team to introduce them to one another so that they understand who is Fred. And now Fred knows that if there's something that is related to a people issue or the collaborative work that we need to do, and I have a request, I can go to Susan or I can go to Jane. If there's a task-driven thing that must be dealt with, I can take ownership of that and take sort of the ownership of that. If there is change to be facilitated, I must understand that I am, as Fred, soft on change, and these two individuals are are relatively strong on change. So there's a informed process so that everybody knows in this team, but who are we and how do we relate to one another? If this does not happen, and we do not do this, Fred can easily say, you know what, I think there's an overemphasis on the fact that people must be always taken into consideration. And we have two individuals driving this, Jane and Susan, and they always hold us back because they always make an issue out of the people side of things. But now it's not necessary because Fred understands it. Fred now understands that Susan and Jane will be vocal and they will emphasize the people side of the team. Fred will also know that if it comes down to the accuracy and attention to detail, Susan and Fred will be very strong on this, but Jane and Alan will not be that strong. So we have a very well-informed discussion with the team, and we facilitate the process so that everybody in the team understand where they sit and where they fit and how Fred will influence the working engine of the team. And we can go further down on our list and say, but how do we form groups within this team? And we now see that we have 3 individuals in the independent group, and they are Fred, he's one of the independents. Alan is an independent, and Joe is an independent person. We don't have anybody in adventure and change. We have one person in the people's group that is the strongest person in that form, qualifies for that group. We have one individual in the action and task group. And now we have a very well-informed, and if there's a bit of tension in the team, who will hold it together? Jane will hold the team together. So what we've done now is we have provided the team with a person and all the information related to that person and how that person will also influence the working connections in the team. With a team build, a facilitated team session like this, everybody in the team can now come back and say, all right, I understand where Fred will fit into the team. We can see that Fred follows almost the same pattern as the team profile. There's a bit of a deviation on those two, but it's not a lot. There are some individuals that could frustrate Fred, that's one. And Fred and Susan must be aware of this so that they are informed about the areas or the themes, the working themes where things might frustrate them and they might experience a disconnect. There are obvious other disconnections between Fred and some other team members, but if we facilitate this process in a mature way, we can understand that everybody understands that when we have to work with a high level of accuracy, this person might frustrate Fred, and Fred will frustrate that person. But if we have to do things quick, the opposite frustration can happen. This individual will be much quicker and faster than what Fred might do within his natural patterns. So this is what we mean if we say that we want a team integration to be done. But what we can do is, you must also remember that, I'm going to stop the screen now, that we can, with a click of a button, obviously ask the system to say, but what is the development area for Fred? And the system will say that Fred needs to be developed in this area. And then we can assign that development program to Fred. So the entire process of development, integration, the roles that they play must be facilitated. If we don't do that, we compromise the success of the team, because the team now needs to take time to know who Fred is. Fred needs to take time to know who the team is, and we can very easily run into a split of behavioral understanding because they do not approve each other's behavior and because they don't understand the behavior patterns, and then the learning and development and the productivity of the team and the individual is being compromised. So this is how the shadow match system can help you throughout the process, especially with the onboarding process. The important thing that we need to note, dear delegates, is that remember the process is done when the team assimilation and the integration, the onboarding process has been completed. This is when the recruitment process comes to an end. If we do not do that, we have an incomplete recruitment process, because remember, the guys in the operation can't do this. Well, we can train them, it's quite easy, but it's not really their job. I'm convinced that an outsider is the best person to do this. With this, Lizette, back to you, and thank you very much. I'm willing to take all the questions.
Thank you, Peter. Maybe just a quick comment. There were some questions in the chat. We've got some people joining today that are seeing this for the first time. So there were questions about how do we determine the gray in the middle of the graph. So maybe I can just comment for the participants that haven't seen this before. This is part of the shadow match system. And the shadow match system takes the habits of all the team members and then combines that into the team graph. So the gray you saw in the middle is the team graph. That's the combined habits of the team. So that's what you can expect from the team as an entity in terms of their behavior patterns. And then what you've seen, what Peter did is he overlaid each individual compared to the team as a whole. I'll hand to Peter shortly if you want to say more, Peter, but that was so what we do, we can either, as from the Shadow Match head office, we've got many consultants that are trained and that are using the system for their consulting and are also doing implementations at clients. So there's one of two ways. We can facilitate a team session. So if you have a new recruit and you would like to do an onboarding process, or if you just have a team and you would like to understand the team better or understand your own team of which you are part, you want to understand that team better, we can facilitate a team session for you. Alternatively, you can use the shadow match system and do it yourself. Include people, exclude people from a team and see how the dynamics change and how certain individuals will impact on the team and vice versa, the team on the individual. So that's also possible. I will type in the chat. I will hand to Peter shortly, but I will type in the chat. You can send us an email at info@shadowmatch.com or info@shadowmatch.co.za, and we can help you to either facilitate a team session or to get you started. If you want to use this functionality all by yourself, there's ample training available. And as you saw, it's very user-friendly. People will obviously have to complete the shadow match worksheet, because how do we get these results and how do we know that the habits of Fred are the habits that you saw? There's obviously a ticket to the match. They have to complete the shadow match worksheet. Then you get the shadow match results. And once you've got the shadow match results, you can play with the results. And that's where we then use those results. And that's what you saw Peter did at the beginning. He included people into a team. So Peter, I'm going to hand back to you, and then I'll handle some of the other comments just on this topic to maybe say a few words.
Lisette, yeah, it's maybe what you said, just to show it on the screen, and then obviously it makes the learning process a bit easier. So what we do is, everybody in this team, this is now a different team. I just want to show the full picture to you. Everybody has done completed the shadow match worksheet, and by doing that, they tell the system about their habits. The system creates a profile of their habits, and then in the team graph, that point is the opposite of that point. If you look at change, for instance, change is the opposite of maintaining the known. If we look at active exploration, that's the opposite of structure and discipline. So it says, what is the preference or the balance in the team? You can see that this team, for instance, if they behave as a collective, there's a balance between being quick and efficient and being accurate and attention to detail. The intensity on both sides is relatively in sync with one another, but here we have a definite pull, and there we have a definite team with a preference to rather stay with what they know than to change. Then if we show all the team members, there we have all the team members, and now we can see the gray area is the mean behavioral average of the the different team members. So if this team would act as a unit, we can expect that level of intensity, because we have on both ends, we have people that would, if we consolidate, it comes together at that point that I've shown you. But we can now see that in this area of team preference, we have two individuals, Terry, and we have Sharon, that is much different to one another. So if we now highlight Terry and Sharon, we will immediately see, and this is a bit, that color is a bit vague, we will immediately see that on this side here, there and there, the difference is huge. So there's the potential to build up tension in that area between these two individuals is quite high. If they know about their differences, they understand it, and then the risk of building up tension and stress and sometimes even conflict is much less. So this is how the team graph presents, and obviously then it shows the groups where they will naturally fit into the group, into the different groups. Here you can see we have 7 people in the people's group, we have 3 people in the cautious group, we have 4 people in the anchor group, 1 individual in independent, and nobody in those red groups. So this is how the team functionality helps a team to better understand their collective behavior, but also to better understand the individuals in the team. And if there's a new team member, obviously it helps for a better understanding of the team. So I can now, in a very quick sort of an easy way, just put Fred as part of this team to see how Fred will work in this projects team, because he's a new employee. And that's very easy. What we do is we find Fred. Fred is in admin, he's an employee. I click on employees. Fred is in admin. Where is Fred? There's Fred. We ask the system to add Fred to the team, add to the team, and we say we want him into the new products project team. We add Fred to that team, and now we see there's Fred. There's Fred Flintstone is now part of the projects team. Remember, I made him part of the admin team. Now Fred is part of the projects team because he's going to work as part of that team as well. Now we see a different picture. Now we see a completely different picture, and we say, well, now we have to maybe talk a bit, because on the people side of things, this team, the average of the team is high. But on the task and material preference, the average of the team is relatively contextually low, and Fred is strong. So the team must now understand that the differences must be used in a positive way and not against each other. Fred is much more accurate with attention to detail than the average of the team. But let's have a look. Who will be in line with Fred? On accurate and attention to detail, Fred will be the only one. So we refer to this as a bit of an outlier in the team. But on the people side, there are a few ones that are more or less the same intensity than what is Fred. And if we want to see now in which group Fred will fit, as part of this, we can very easily find Fred. Fred is going to sit in the independent group. So as part of this team, Fred will be in the independent group. So he will take a critical look and work for the team, but not necessarily be part of the working engine of the team. Rather, stand a bit outside and work for the team, work with the team, but not work in the team. So these are the things that the system can help to make the onboarding process very easy. And as you've seen, is you click, you add, you remove. I can do a lot of things now. I can just remove Fred from the team and say no. This just remove Fred, exclude Fred from the team calculation. It recalculates. It said Fred does not influence this anymore. And now we have Fred outside of the team, and we can do a reassessment of the entire team capability. Lisette, with that, I'm going to stop and then hear for more questions.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you very much. There were a few comments, and I will enable the setting for you shortly. I would just like to handle some of the comments, and then I will get to those that have raised their hands and that have made some comments. There was a question about that the person said she noticed that, or he or she noticed that you did the team session after appointment. Should it need not be done before appointment? Now, I know this is somebody that's new to the shadow match system. So the recruitment process works with benchmarks. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We've got some webinars on that specifically, which you can maybe send us an email and we can share those webinars with you. But the recruitment process is to see whether the individual will fit the environment, fit the culture, and whether the individual has the same habits as the top performers already successful in the job. So this is a follow-up session of previous sessions. So once you've determined that this person is the right person for the job, they have a good match to the habits of the top performers, then you will appoint the person. And then once the person becomes part of the team, you do this team session to help the person to integrate into the team so that the newcomer understands the team and the team understands the newcomer. You could, however, if you have a very small division where you don't have top performers, or you only have 2 or 3 people working in a specific department, division, or team, and there's no way for you to compile a benchmark of top performers, you can use this team functionality as part of your recruitment process. In other words, before you appoint, do what Peter demonstrated. Will this person fit into this team? And then decide whether you're going to appoint. But your recruitment is specifically, it works best with the benchmarks. The team functionality can be used where you don't have the opportunity to create a benchmark. So I just wanted to comment on that. And then, Peter, there were 2 questions that's closely related, comments, questions. I just want to find them on the chat. The one said that it's a pity that industry does not easily learn from employment mistakes. It seems that the industry habit of traditional employment is a difficult one to break. The person says just today he had a conversation with 2 clients that made the wrong appointments. It cost them a lot of money, but still they don't want to use shadow match. And then the second comment related to that is that, just bear with me for a moment. The process that you've shown is the ideal method, obviously. But this consultant said that the clients just don't have the time to pay this much attention to the data of a new employee. Can you please expand on how we can convince people to make this an important part of their people management and their development work and not a nice to have? So the question is twofold. I think the first bit is, how can we convince clients? As Peter said at the start, the return on employment calculator will be ready quite soon, and we will have a session. We'll probably have a webinar where we show you. The return on employment calculator is a calculator that will show a company what is their current break-even point on appointing new people. And it's quite a shocker to see how many months it takes, and sometimes it takes more than what the person has resigned long ago, and then still you've never reached the break-even point. So the calculator shows what is your current employment process and what is your break-even point. If you start using shadow match, how can you bring that break-even point closer so that you can quickly start to earn on that person? And if you've got a mature shadow match process, in other words, you've used shadow match for 12 months for your recruitment, how can that bring your break-even point forward? So that is definitely something that you can use to convince clients to use shadow match. But now, Peter, the second question was maybe more something, how do we convince somebody that this is not a nice to have? Maybe you've got some ideas on that. Thank you.
Lisette, it's an easy calculation. You just need to show most people, well, I don't want to qualify this by saying most intelligent people, but most intelligent people understand what the cost of employment is. Now, if you take an employee, I just want to, Paul, sorry, I'll be with you in a second. If you take an employee that earns, let's make it around 25,000 Rand a month. If that person takes a month to get familiar with everybody, they've probably taken out of everybody's time another 25,000 Rand of productivity, because they sat with them. What are you doing? Who are you? Where do you come from? Where were you in high school? Because this is how we learn from one another, because we don't have the team functionality. But now we have the team functionality. If we take a month for the person to become productive, and we can bank on it that that person has taken the same amount of productive time out of colleagues' diary, and just to get to know them and to get into the engine of the business. Now we're on 50,000 Rand, and the person has not yet been. Now the person must start to produce. Now they need to work 50,000 Rand back into the bank account of the business, whilst they earn 25,000 Rand a month. So they take 25 out, they need to put 50 back. It's a nightmare. The numbers just run away with you, and you have a dead loss of your recruitment process. So what we do is we shorten that time so that this person can become productive much quicker and be an asset for the business much quicker. And if they don't have time to save the business money, then we must really ask the question whether they understand the principle of business. That's because that's a challenging thing. I know I've seen who asked the question. It's just something that you must explain to them and say, it's going to take 2 hours of your time instead of 3 months. So what do you want? Paul, let me hear.
Great. Paul can't speak right now because he can't unmute himself. So, dear delegates, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'll open the floor for you to ask your questions live. Just allow me a moment.